Previously on Dude, You Haven't Played This Game.
How are you, Mark Hamill? Nice to meet you.
Whoa, look who it is, everybody! It's the voice of Wolverine, well, in the console version of this game, but still, nevertheless, Mark Hamill! And who could forget your time as the Star Wars legend Luke Skywalker?
Yeah, XK on the Eyewalker Skay. Mouse isn't gonna like that one. He'll take your kidneys. Trust me, I know.
What? That's crazy. This is just a silly review. I know Disney owns these movies now since they have Fox, plus Star Wars, but they wouldn't come after little old me, right?
Kid, have you seen JonTron lately? No. It's because he's in a block of carbonite so thick you couldn't cut it with Mandalorian mayonnaise. Trust me, don't mess with the mouse.
You don't scare me. I could review anything I want to, and Disney's not going to do anything to stop me.
No!
Yes, it's time.
Kid, don't do this. Stay away from the dark side of the Force.
I'm going to look at a Star Wars game on the Game Boy Advance. And you know what? Screw you, Disney. In the words of Cal Dodd, the one and only Wolverine for me, I go where I want to go. What the? What happened to the lights?
Sorry, kid. I tried to warn you.
Nobody messes with the House of Mouse.
Oh, man, my head. What happened? Where am I? Other generic kidnapping-based verbal inquiries.
Well, that's pretty simple, actually. I kidnapped you because you not only reviewed one Disney property without our permission, but now you're threatening to review a second? This will not stand in the House of Mouse.
I don't really consider it a threat. It's more me trying to do something special for the Star Wars and retro gaming communities.
Oh boy, trust me, I've seen your content. It's a threat.
Star Wars. What can I say about it that hasn't already been said? It's arguably the greatest initial sci-fi trilogy of all time. The content that came afterwards was...
well, it was a mixed bag.
Oh! You better take that back, you son of a...
Whoa, don't do anything rash. I have a subscription to Disney Plus. I love The Mandalorian.
Your kneecaps are safe. For now.
I wasn't introduced to Star Wars at an early age. In fact, it wasn't until the special editions came out that I became a Star Wars maniac. Back in 1997, I had just turned 14. I remember the buzz about the special editions and thought, okay, I'll bite. That summer changed me into a Star Wars obsessed teenager, foaming at the mouth for anything Star Wars. I tried to consume any and all media regarding it back then. I read the books, I collected the toys, I even got into the Star Wars CCG card game, I listened to the soundtracks, I watched the VHS releases over and over again. Heck, I even used to collect the Star Wars magazine, and it would have these really funny letters from Anthony Daniels, who played C-3PO. And whenever I wrote to my grandmother, I would emulate the style he laid out in the magazine. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, I was a massive Star Wars nerd. Here's a picture of me on my 8th grade field trip to Washington, D.C. Look at that shirt. Talk about a fashion faux pas.
I see, not much has changed since then.
Nope, just older and wiser.
That second one is up for debate.
But along with my love of everything involving the Force, I loved the Star Wars video games. I had to get my hands on every Star Wars game I could, and since I only had a Super Nintendo and a PC at the time, I ended up renting the Super Star Wars Trilogy games, in addition to playing games like Rebel Assault 2 on my PC. I recall owning a Game Genie back then, and if I wanted to see the end of the game, I had to use it, especially for Return of the Jedi because those games were absolutely brutal. Released in consecutive years starting from 1992 up to 1994, the Sculptured software and LucasArts co-developed entries were fun action games that crank the difficulty to a maximum level. I've gone back to these games in recent years, and I gotta be honest, I still have no idea how I had the patience to beat them.
It was probably the lack of soul-crushing adulthood that makes them difficult to return to, but who knows?
Shut up! You're wasting everyone's time with this live-action nonsense!
Where'd he go? Ow! I thought you were supposed to be this kid-friendly, kind, sweet mascot.
You do know there's going to be someone in the comments section saying he's 5 minutes into the review and hasn't even gotten to the game he's reviewing yet, right?
Over the years, I continued to play Star Wars games, but most entries revolved more around flying missions, like the Rogue Squadron titles. These games were excellent, but I always just wanted to get back to an action platformer styled after the original trilogy. Considering this, it's surprising that I missed today's game, Star Wars: Apprentice of the Force. It was an attempt by Ubisoft's Montreal development team to retell the story of A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi through a condensed action platformer. Released in 2004 exclusively for the Game Boy Advance, this handheld title is told through Luke Skywalker's perspective. But is this summarized trilogy game worth using the Force to get your wallet open? Apprentice of the Force starts off with a simple, yet striking title screen complete with characters ripped right from the Tom Jung designed classic movie poster. A metallic sheen plastered across, the title screen is a clear sign that this game will feel like a true love letter to the original trilogy. Single player, multiplayer, bonus, options, and credits are our choices, with the single player being the bulk of the adventure. Sadly, I couldn't capture multiplayer footage, nor could I find information about it online, so I'm wondering if you play as a palette-swapped Luke, or perhaps a different character. Anyways, the bonus area is just extra art and pictures for behind-the-scenes content from the movies, which is a fun addition to the game. Options are bare, allowing adjustment of the brightness, or to disable the music, though why would you?
To get around copyright strikes for the music, obviously.
Whoa! Don't you even think about it, Buster!
Starting the game, we're treated to the infamous Star Wars intro text scroll, and wow, it looks terrible here. I love that they try to include it, but once the text gets past the first 2 or so lines, it may as well just disappear as it's impossible to read. From Luke's perspective, the game has this sort of past look back on his adventures told through his own words. It's a clever way to present the narrative that brings lots of story elements into the game, and it's a welcome addition, albeit treading on familiar territory. Apprentice of the Force is a side-scrolling action game with platforming aspects added in. Using the same engine Ubisoft created for Prince of Persia's Game Boy Advance port, the combat is initially basic, with Luke running around with his laser blaster, blowing away all Tusken Raiders and Stormtroopers. I feel like there's not enough of a variety in enemies early on in the game, though this changes as the story progresses. But some of the variety of enemies don't make any sense. Like, why are there bees attacking you on the Death Star?
Oh! Those are the Death Star bees! Every Star Wars fan knows about those!
Uh-huh.
Oh boy! Some fan you are!
I should actually come clean though, this part was taken from a non-stop enemy onslaught, which is accessible after beating the game. This was found kinda by accident when I went back to try to replay the old missions and discovered this as a bonus level. However, what was more troubling is that I can't go back further than the tail end of Empire Strikes Back if I wanted to replay missions. Why wouldn't they let me go back and replay the game by specific episodes if I wanted? I tried every button combination to go further back, thinking maybe I'm just selected on the wrong section, but no, nothing works. Why wouldn't they allow players to replay the whole game based on which episode they wanted to enjoy? This seems like a massive mistake on the developers' part. What the developers decided to do instead is create forced stop spots, flooding the screen with enemies after a slight zoom effect appears. This lets the player know that Luke must take out every enemy before he can progress. Initially, this was bland and repetitive in the earlier stages, but as the difficulty progressed, and as Luke's abilities grew, I found myself having more fun figuring out different ways to defeat these hordes of baddies. In addition, Luke's combat is far more than just mashing the B button. Certain enemies are easier to take out with a rhythmic punch with said button, or by holding up on the directional pad and attacking with B for an uppercut slash. There's also a downward smash that can be done by pressing up then down quickly while attacking. Finally, ducking and pressing B allows Luke to attack while squatting. Some of these attack methods produce varying results. I found that the combat, while easy to learn, required some patience to master, teaching the player when and where to use which attacks, parries, or Jedi powers. Aside from the standard platforming aspects of climbing ladders and terrain, as well as pulling himself up onto higher platforms, Luke can gain abilities as the game advances. Eventually he'll gain a lightsaber, with an option to switch to a blaster with the select button. When it comes to Luke's Jedi powers, they can all be tracked by pressing the start button and scrolling through each square that has been acquired. The dash attack can be triggered with a double tap of the direction you're going in, which helps dodge attacks. In addition to this, his lightsaber can parry blaster shots based on the angle he is standing or sitting at, ricocheting it back to his enemies. Obstacles can be rolled under if pressing the A button while crouched, and a double jump, once unlocked, is a massive help with reaching new areas. All of these are more physical powers, with Jedi powers being learned as the later stages are reached. Force push causes foes to fling backwards, which is so much fun to use when enemies are near pits. Just a quick press of the R button and the B button sends them flying. Force blitz allows Luke to speed up his movements, making everyone else seem much slower. Force heal, enabled by pressing R and down, allows Luke to heal, which comes in handy in the more enemy-intensive stages. Finally, Jedi Slash defeats all enemies on the screen by holding B and releasing, though I don't believe this works for bosses. There's plenty of opportunity for variety because the game is broken up into 3 acts, based on the original 3 movies: A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. Escort missions start as early as Tatooine, where Luke must guide R2-D2 around, making sure he doesn't get hurt. Later, Princess Leia is located on the Death Star, and she is escorted by our hero to the Millennium Falcon. In addition to these protection escort-style missions, there's some fun top-down and side-scrolling shooter stages, where Luke is piloting his X-Wing or the speeder bike in Return of the Jedi. Between a variety of dogfights and Death Star runs, the shoot-'em-up stages control well and add a breath of fresh air to break up the more repetitive horde fighting moments in the side-scrolling action stages. I felt that the challenge in the game was fair, but I wanted the game to allow me more of an opportunity to fail, as deaths tend to respawn Luke at the beginning of the area he entered into, not the beginning of the stage. There's no game overs in Apprentice of the Force, and that's perhaps more user-friendly to most people. Personally, I'm more of a fan of being given a certain number of chances, and if I fail, I should be punished for that.
What's wrong with you? You're some kind of sadomasochist.
Says the guy who has me tied up.
Yeah? Well, you like it. You naughty, naughty boy.
Hit detection works well in this game, but at the same time, I never feel like I'm connecting with my hits. What I mean is, enemies may react to your attacks, but I never feel like the weight of my lightsaber slicing into the bad guys. This is very similar to the Super NES games, where swinging your lightsaber doesn't feel like it's clashing with anything on the screen. Graphically, I think Apprentice of the Force has some hit or miss moments. The side-scrolling levels generally look great, and the graphics are appropriate to the source material. Standouts include the big scenes like fighting Darth Vader, the Death Star, and Jabba's palace. The shoot-'em-up levels' visual quality depends on how detailed the ships are. The dogfights and speeder bike levels don't look great, with more simplistic looking sprites for the enemies and players that would have been more impressive if they weren't top-down. Though I have to say the Death Star run is really visually captivating thanks to a busy background, which is improved with the side-scrolling ship sprites. It just looks more detailed and less far away. Enemies and character sprites look pretty solid as well, with some having an almost cel-shaded look to them, like the Rancor monster in Jabba's palace. The sound is exactly what you'd expect from an Ubisoft licensed Star Wars game on the Game Boy Advance. Here we have John Williams' stellar score adjusted to fit the hardware with honestly mediocre results. The Game Boy Advance has always been a mixed bag when it comes to audio, but there are some examples of great game music on the system. I just don't think Ubisoft's sound drivers sound good. Probably the best song on here is the Mos Eisley Cantina Band track. Otherwise, most tracks sound stuttery and muffled. The Game Boy Advance has Star Wars games with better versions of the same songs, so it's clearly an Ubisoft problem. Compare these tracks and see for yourself. The bonus area from the main menu is pictures from the making of Star Wars, some behind the scenes production art, and more. I'm not seeing anything here pertaining specifically to the game itself though, but still, it's a neat little bonus. So in the end, did I enjoy Apprentice of the Force? I'd say yes. It's a far easier condensed version of the Super Star Wars games with a bit of variety thrown in here and there with a great use of Force powers and overall decent graphics. I would have liked more playable character variety, but considering this is Luke's perspective, it works for what it is. Apprentice of the Force is generally about a $10 game used, and I'd say it's worth the time to track it down and play. I just wish the sound was better to match the fun gameplay experience. Apprentice of the Force plays it safe on all counts and is about as average as you can get for a Star Wars experience, with its combat and Force powers being the real star of the, wars here.
You should have said star of the show. You need some writing lessons.
I mean, I could just steal everything like your company does.
What? That's not true.
Sure it is.
No, we pay fair and square. I paid $4 billion for Star Wars.
I suppose so, but hey, this squabble was a good distraction.
What?
Ah! Look away, kids! I'm about to ruin some childhoods.
Stop!
What?
Don't you think there's a better way to end this episode?
Quick, what's something we can put at the end that will make people want to unsubscribe?
Introducing Disney VPN++.
We're here today to revolutionize your internet browsing experience to make it a safer, more kid-friendly environment.
But at the same time, we want to create something that also will secure all our intellectual properties.
Are you tired of having your identity stolen but also wish it involved magic and wonder? Do you want access to all the Disney Plus content without having to sign up for Disney Plus? Remember the first time you went to Disney World or Disneyland? That feeling can be recaptured for just 39 cents a day.
We want to protect your financials from hackers and silly merchandise. Choose Disney VPN++ in 12 different varieties, all with assorted characters from our wonderful company's legacy.
Remember, Disney VPN++ is the only VPN to have not just one, but two pluses in it, adding an additional layer of security. This also allows you to watch Star Wars Disney Plus shows without letting your friends and family know you signed up for Disney Plus. I still need to watch Obi-Wan Kenobi's latest series.
Oh, that's okay. You really don't have to do that.
Order Disney VPN++ today. Okay, I put an ad in the video itself. Can you pay me now? Wait, where'd he go?
Thanks to all Patreon members, but especially the Morningstar Whip tier and up. They are Bryce, Nintenjo, Venthros, Great White North Presents, Technicolor Dojo, Sam Schaefer, Scott McElhone, Trevin Adams, and Derek Demitter. Your support really helps with each and every review. If anyone is watching this and wants to help, feel free to join in the link below. For those who want to help in other ways, sharing the review on your social media really means a lot, as my channel has and always will be sponsored by viewers like you. Thanks for watching. Want more Dude You Haven't Played This Game? Check out the videos on the screen. Or head to my channel and grab the full playlist of reviews and retrospectives. I'll see you on the next Dude You Haven't Played This Game.